All right, welcome back to Unscripted Liberty. I'm your host, Brittany Cozen, and today we're diving into a topic that everyone's got an opinion on, but not enough people are bringing any real solutions to the table: abortion and pro-life laws. But we're not here to argue or throw around any slogans. Today's guest is Ashley Luna, and she has put together a serious, thought-out proposal of how we can address the real concerns around abortion, and she's even submitted it to RFK Jr.'s policy portal. Before we get into this, I just want to give you a taste of what she's been working on by reading her first paragraph of her submission to you. Unless you want to go and tell it, Ashley, it's up to you.
Go ahead. We'll switch off.
Okay. So it says here, regarding abortion, I propose a well-researched, comprehensive policy package centered around a federal exception law that resolves a top concerns about abortion and pro-life laws, holds medical providers accountable for treatment delays, dispels harmful misinformation, and offers small pro-life concessions without any bans or interference with states' set gestational limits. If implemented well,
it does not interfere with, it doesn't interfere with states' rights either.
If implemented well, it would end the most polarizing aspects of this debate, and abortion would no longer be a wedge tool for future elections. Okay, so do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, kind of give a little bit of background of why you got involved in this topic and why what it means to you?
Well, my name is Ashley from California. I'm a mother, and I have 2 children. I've always been pro-life. However, I do support moderate legislation. It is one of my top issues. However, I have other issues that are very important to me that generally revolve around being pro-family, pro-woman, pro-working class. And I've noticed that there's a lot of misinformation around this particular issue. It really bothers me. There's a lot of polarization about it, a lot of blame running around, and it bothers me that that people we should work on a solution that that includes everyone's voices, that looks at all the facts. And I sometimes feel that people are not willing to do that, and that perpetuates the issue. Regarding the issue of abortion, it's not just because I'm obsessed necessarily with abortion, but like, you know, when you talk about abortion, it pulls in all other issues. Then it forces you to talk about family. It forces you to talk about the workforce and labor rules. It forces you to talk about women and women's rights, and so many other things get pulled into it. I followed RFK for some time, and I was very pleased with one of his policies where he came up with called "More Choices, More Life." Where he acknowledged that being pro-choice is not just about supporting access to abortion for those who need it. It's also about supporting access to choosing motherhood. And he suggested various options to help pregnant women choose motherhood. For example, helping with childcare, supporting places like Angie's House and other resources. And that's the kind of direction that I want the discussion to go to. Is I would like to fight for a culture of life. And you don't have to be necessarily pro-life to fight for a culture of life. You could be pro-choice. But I think fighting for a culture of life is a beginning point that would infuse a very healthy discussion on how we can solve our biggest social problems.
Yeah, definitely. I like that idea. It's a different perspective on things. Now, there's this whole debate on it brings a lot of misinformation out there. And you seems like you've been very direct in pointing this out, especially when it comes to the media and politicians, how they frame these pro-life laws. So what are some of the biggest myths that you've come across, and like how do you feel like they affect the public's understanding of like what's really happening with these pro-life laws? And what do we need to clear up and start having this more honest and open discussions?
The first myth the very biggest myth out there pertains to the reasons why women seek late-term abortions. Democrats, as well as people representing the abortion industry, repeatedly claim that, oh, late-term abortions, they rarely happen. And it's usually for severe medical cases where it's a risk to the mother's life, or there's a severe fetal abnormality. And that's not true. I have read studies, articles, words coming directly from abortionists. I have thoroughly read about this issue. And I know for a fact that the majority of late-term abortions, I'm referring to abortions that occur after 20 weeks, the majority of late-term abortions are not for medical reasons. They are generally for elective reasons. And this is allowed to occur for many different reasons. One of the reasons why this occurs is because, well, you may have states or countries that allow elective abortion up to a certain point, whether it's 24 weeks or 20 weeks, whatever. Okay. But also, abortion doctors are allowed to perform elective abortions even beyond viability, because for other reasons. One thing that I learned in my extensive research is that when you say that when the law says that abortion should be allowed until viability, and they say the doctor should define viability, well, there's doctors who have claimed that viability is basically whatever they say. And so they allow some abortion doctors allow elective abortion until 32 weeks. In some states, you'll see it at 35 weeks. Abortion doctors have also been known to abuse exceptions. So, for example, the mental health exception, they've you may say there's no abortion allowed after 24 weeks unless she meets a mental health exception, or they say unless a health exception. But the problem is that if you do not define the word health, then abortion doctors misuse it and say, okay, this includes mental health, this includes financial health, this includes just the fact that she's a racial minority, and the idea of becoming a single mother, that's mental health. So and they've also used the life of the mother exception, that if the mother is claiming to be suicidal, they've coached women to claim to be suicidal in order to get the life of the mother exception. So that is the problem with this myth is that when the Democrats claim that late-term abortion doesn't happen that often, and it's usually for extreme circumstances, that shuts down the discussion. Then most people are no longer necessarily interested in hearing about it, and they think that you're a nut. But the bottom line is that, factually speaking, abortion is the #1 cause of death for children. And even when you only look at late-term abortion, late-term abortion kills around 10,000 unborn babies every single year in the United States. So even if you only look at late-term abortion, it still kills more children in the US, more than car accidents and gun violence combined. So and not only that, these are unborn babies who are capable of pain. I read that extensively. They are capable of pain. They're not being given any fetal pain relief. And another thing that I found very shocking and very disturbing, that I've had to read very carefully to find out, is that for the majority of these second trimester abortions, they're not giving that unborn baby the fetal digoxin shot for the majority of the second trimester. Okay, so they are not killing the babies before the abortion procedure. So what is happening on American soil is that thousands of fully formed unborn babies are getting dismembered while they are still alive, in a way to feel that whole thing. So, and then some of them survive even after 15 weeks. Some of them do survive that initial abortion, and then they're in the hands of these abortion doctors who have seen it happen many times. And in some states, like the red states, there's some protections for unborn babies, where it's required for them, if they're viable, they have to be sent to the NICU to be taken care of. Sometimes they offer comfort care, which means the nurse might hold the baby. Other times they just leave that baby to die. They leave them on. I've read the stories. I've read all of the stories, all the witness testimonies from nurses, doctors, mothers, and what is happening to babies that are in these pro-choice states when they don't have laws to protect babies who are born alive, including viable babies that would be likely to survive with medical care. This is what's happening to them. They're getting left alone to die on metal trays. They're getting thrown in plastic buckets. They're getting thrown in medical waste bags. They're not receiving any medical care, and that's what they're dying from. Sometimes they die from violence. You know why? Sometimes they're drowned in solution. Sometimes their body parts are cut. And the reason why this is happening sometimes is because the abortionist needs to stop that baby from alerting everyone else with their cries that the baby survived. So that is one myth. The other myth has to do with the fact that many hospitals across the country, they sometimes do not provide adequate care for pregnant women. And as a result, this has harmed the pregnant woman's body. Sometimes that harm includes death. This has happened in both pro-life states and in pro-choice states. It's happened in states before the Dobbs decision, when every state everyone had access to elective abortion until viability. However, there's been a very systematic, very intentional misinformation campaign that has come from Democrats. It has also come from top representatives of medical, professional medical groups, for example, ACOG, who are spreading misinformation about the pro-life laws deliberately. And every time you have a headline like this that happens in a pro-life state, automatically, and also the media is in on this, they automatically blame the pro-life law. And they say it so often, and they don't present all the truth. They just present some of the facts, and they repeat it so often that people start to believe it, and they believe it as a fact. And so now, I've paid attention to the polls, and I'm aware that the majority of Americans, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, the majority of Americans have always supported some kind of restriction against late-term elective abortion. But what you see now in recent polls, I mean, people still oppose the, late-term elective abortion, but you see some doubt setting into these polls. You see, Republicans like President Trump or Carrie Lake, JD Vance kind of back away from their previously, pro-life positions because they're worried about, public support, and they're not sure about what the best legislation they could do. So they just, sometimes just revert to states' rights. So it definitely puts us pro-lifers in a defensive position. And what's very upsetting is it's not just that, and we also see ballot measures that are passed. For example, Ohio, they've passed ballot measures that are pro-abortion. And it's due in part because of changing, there's some doubt amongst people about, I wonder, these pro-life laws, I don't want to hurt women. But it's also because there's some information about these ballot measures. These ballot measures aren't being completely honest. People don't realize that when they vote for these ballot measures, they don't realize how the language can be taken advantage by unscrupulous abortion doctors and really can allow abortion until birth. And so in addition, it's not easy to be a pro-life person in the United States. it's very difficult. We get a lot of heat. We get a lot of hate. We There was an example of someone, a dude, a pro-choice male person, who posted the story of what happened to his wife, and he said what happened to his wife. She was miscarrying. They had a 7-week embryo that was deceased. They live in Texas, and they were given abortion pills, but they really wanted a DNC. And so they didn't get the DNC right away until she was showing symptoms several days later, and passed out. And so finally she eventually passed the deceased embryo. But he started posting, and he just immediately started blaming pro-lifers, and from the very, very beginning, claiming that it's our fault. And you have someone like Lila Rose and other pro-lifers who are saying, "Oh, I'm sorry what happened, but this is medical malpractice. Please don't make this political," and he just says to people like her and to us, "You are the problem. You did this." And that was his repeated campaign. And he's gone on all these different news stories to try to fight for pro-choice laws. And I also posted on that. And at first I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but then he just kept persisting with his dangerous lies. And then he actually shared one of my tweets in order to direct his fans to direct their hate against me. And so they would say things like, "I have blood on my hands. This is my fault. I'm killing women." And it feels like Darvo and like the worst form of gaslighting. I've been to family court where I brought up my accusations of abuse against the father of my child. And what abusers do is they will then, the worst part of when you experience some sort of abuse and you try to bring it up and advocate for yourself, the worst part is the Darvo, is when that abuser then accuses you of doing the same thing, and although Darvo as a term isn't an exact fit for this scenario that I'm referring to, it's just the best way that I can describe it. And it's insufferable. It's insufferable to me. This is the environment that we are in, where we have, and the media, of course, says the same thing. They just repeatedly bring up these tropes, and so those are the top two misconceptions that I want to bring up, that I hope that we can fix, that we can address.
Yeah, and definitely that definitely brought up a lot of stuff to my attention. We've been talking a little bit before tonight and stuff. So, I want to go and get into more of the meat of your proposal that you've written. It seems
Okay.
like you've laid out some very specific stipulations, and it's clear you've definitely put in a lot of work and a lot of thought into what needs to be done to address a lot of the common complaints that people are having about these pro-life laws. So it looks like you're not out here just saying like straight out ban abortion. You're actually offering some pretty good solutions here. So do you want to
Thank you.
kind of walk us through some of your solutions and what you've proposed?
Okay, let me go back to my policy then. Trump has repeatedly said that he will not pass any abortion ban whatsoever, and that is one of the reasons why this does not include a ban. And he also talks about states' rights. If you were to go to my proposal is called "A Right to Maternal/Fetal Health Care and Education to Stabilize the Abortion Issue." Now, what it really is really just a right to basic safeguards. It's not like Obamacare or anything where, or universal health care. It's nothing like that. That's just the title of it. But people should keep in mind that it does not ban abortion because Trump does not want to. But it works around that. If you go to my proposal, I also explain that, some people say they claim that it goes against the Constitution. They claim that the Dobbs decision placed the matter of abortion or healthcare back to the states only. And so I do explain in many ways why that's not exactly true, that the Dobbs decision never said anything about abortion being states' rights only. It just said that the Constitution doesn't grant a right to elective abortion. And even if in the concurring opinion, they said that it's up to, quote, elected lawmakers in both state and, quote, Congress to choose their laws. And in addition, the 14th Amendment says that federal laws regulating healthcare and abortion are constitutional because it doesn't say that, but it says that federal government is allowed to regulate interstate commerce and to protect a person's right to life, liberty, or property. It does not say a citizen's right. It says a person's right to life, liberty, or property. And in that context, a person could mean a pregnant woman, or it also could mean unborn child. So I explain that because many people, particularly of the libertarian persuasion, they immediately don't want to consider the proposal sometimes because they think, oh, well, this is not constitutional. And I just want to point out, in addition, there's many, if this wasn't constitutional, we already have many federal medical regulations and other regulations related to abortion in place right now. So if this were to be shot down or unconstitutional, then so would many other federal regulations. And in fact, Obamacare, as well as other law called the EMTA law, Republicans repeatedly claimed that Obamacare, as well as the EMTA law, which is it's a pregnancy emergency care related law, federal, they claimed that it was not constitutional, that it basically violated states' rights. But yet the Republican challenges went to the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court with a conservative majority that with Trump appointed justices, and the conservative majority Supreme Court affirmed that laws like Obamacare and EMTLA were constitutional. Okay, so but yes, let's go ahead and get to the meat of it. I would like to summarize what this proposal offers. It is a package, and all these little things come together. And it's come together because I feel that if we don't offer some concessions for pregnant women and some concessions for the pro-life movement, things are just going to get worse. And in 2 to 4 years, we can look forward to a blue wave. And if we don't counter this misinformation and counter all these women that are being harmed by misinformation and by medical malpractice, within 2 to 4 years, we're going to have abortion till healthcare. And the Democrats are not going to fight. They're not going to stop fighting until we have abortion till birth in all 50 states, whether that's via ballot measures or state legislation or federal legislation. Okay. So the first part says right to maternal health care. And this is referring to that the federal legislators should collaborate with OBGYNs, neonatologists, and basically other doctors and state medical boards and lawyers to create a federal exception law that grants well-defined, objectively clear exceptions for certain scenarios. For example, protection for the mother's life and her life-sustaining body organs, non-viable pregnancies, severe/non-viable fetal abnormalities, mothers under the age of 14, and for cases of incest or forcible rape, up to 15 weeks gestation with either a valid police report or medical record. Now, of course, these pro-life states already have protections for the mother's life. However, it is good to be more detailed because, for example, Idaho, they claim that, protection of the mother's life wasn't enough to cover ectopic pregnancies, which isn't true, because to protect the mother's life, if the mother had an ectopic pregnancy, you would have to you would have to abort that child, whatever term you want to use for it. You would have to expel that embryo to protect her life. But at some point, Idaho went ahead and, like, after they enacted the law, they amended it to say, okay, this specifically includes ectopic pregnancy. So it's not because, so it is helpful to be more clear, have a very, very clear federal law, so that it's clear for everyone and not just the people that agree that it's clear. And these exceptions, I have read all the scenarios that all these doctors are talking about that most people would agree should be covered by an exception. I've read all these stories. I've read all the sides, and those exceptions would address concerns that the majority of Americans would have and may support. Now, I know that there are, especially pro-lifers, that take issue with the rape exception. I think they have a valid concern, and that can always be debated. But I do feel that overall, if something like this were passed, then along with my other stipulations that I'm going to get into right now, I do feel that most people would feel like we're at least making progress. And even if there's something about it you don't like or you don't know about, we always have to remember that this law, any law we make, isn't permanent. We can always make changes in 2 years or 4 years or whatever. It's just to do something. Okay. Now, when you have an exception, you have to add teeth to it. Okay. The fact that there are so many doctors willing to delay women's health care and kill them sometimes, we need more teeth to it. So the teeth that I suggest is that there should be reasonable fees or fines against doctors as well as hospitals who are knowingly delaying care, knowingly sending women in danger to other states. I go into detail about that. The next part talks about limitations on states' excessive and ineffective abortion penalties. Texas, I do think that there are certain things about abortion laws that are just plain overkill, and it just feeds Democrat narratives. For example, like the threat of $1 million fine or 99 years in prison. The bounty hunter laws. I think that the federal law should place limits on those things. I still think that any reputable doctor should care more about doing their job and making sure that their patient gets the care that they're entitled to. But why feed the irrational fears about it? It's just there's a lot of issues regarding that. The next part says right to fetal health care, and these are the small pro-life concessions that I'm referring to. So, for example, requiring fetal pain relief or anesthesia for abortions after 12 weeks. Yes, you have a question?
Let's see. I think we have someone, but you can continue.
Do you mind?
It looks like it was my husband post. We were posting, so we had your link.
Oh, okay.
To your thing. Yeah, I know.
Okay. So let me go ahead and try to continue to summarize. So, like I said, this doesn't ban abortion, but there's something else we can do. Okay. It says ban the use of a fetal-cidal agent or feticide, such as dismemberment or the digoxin shot or the intrauterine instillation, those kinds of things, against viable babies determined likely to survive outside the womb based on the child's current medical/developmental circumstances and available medical measures. So what I'm saying is that, Trump is absolutely right when he points out that that perfectly healthy babies and perfectly healthy pregnancies are being aborted, and these children are viable. So, like I said, after 21 weeks, it's about 10,000 babies. Once you get to after 24 weeks, it's about 1,000 babies every year. And then after 28 weeks, the data is not very complete on this. Because states, for example, California, are not required to report all of their abortion data, but there are babies after that are being aborted. And I have seen I've seen plenty of evidence and advertisements from abortion providers advertising abortions at 35 weeks. I've seen phone calls that women make when they're pretending that they're 35 weeks pregnant and there's nothing wrong with the baby, and that provider is perfectly willing to take them. I've seen lots of evidence. So we know that this is happening. But there's one simple thing we can do about it. So for example, if you have a mother who is 24 weeks along, and if that unborn baby is determined that if that baby was born, it would be likely to survive with available medical measures, then this bill will not stop her from terminating her pregnancy, but then it would say, okay, but you cannot dismember the baby. You cannot give the baby the digoxin shot. Okay. And then not only that, we would amend the Protect Babies Born Alive Act. The Protect Babies Born Alive Act was basically stipulated that if you had a baby that survived an abortion, you had to give the same medical treatment to that baby that you would to a baby that survived a premature
Early term labor. Yeah. Preterm labor.
Yeah. Now, one of the criticisms of that was that, oh, well, you're going to force the hospitals to try to mandate care for babies that are not even likely to survive. Okay, now part of that was based on a false pretense. When I read the fact check, I read a fact check article on it. It claimed that, they said, oh, a small percentage of babies actually survive at, 22, 23, 24 weeks. Then I looked at their sources. They were quoting the percentage of babies that were not given any available medical measures. When you look at I've looked at all of these studies. Okay, when you have except for perhaps babies with pre-existing medical circumstances, babies born, the majority, when you give a extreme preemie baby born at 22 weeks, 23, 24 weeks, when you give them available medical care, you admit them to the NICU, the majority of them will survive. And of course, that survivability, that rate increases the older the gestational age. That addresses another common myth that the Democrats and the media will often tell you. So what we should do in order to counter that criticism is say, okay, we're going to say that when you have a baby that's born prematurely, if the doctor certifies that this baby is likely to survive with medical measures, then in that case, you must render, full medical treatment. So the combined rule of saying, you can still terminate your baby anytime. Well, this law doesn't allow termination. It's just saying that we're not banning it because you can't. But the combined restriction against using a method of feticide for late-term abortions, as well as for babies born alive, that's enough to dissuade a lot of women from pursuing a late-term elective abortion. And at least those that do, the children will have a chance at survival. And also for women that do have valid health reasons for inducing early, this does not limit their ability to do that.
Yeah, now I have a big thing that I've been kind of going and discussing and stuff is a lot of libertarians don't want government involved at all, like with medical freedom. It should be between the doctor and the patient themselves of whatever they deem is best for the patient and everyone involved, but without any government restriction or input. What is your take on that with some of the people or with taking that perspective?
Well, we've seen where that kind of mentality has gone, haven't we? We've seen where this is basically a genocide going on, where we have thousands of babies that are getting aborted for elective reasons, and they go through the pain of being dismembered while awake and alive, to feel the whole thing, and then suffer from medical neglect after they're being born. And then we also have women who are suffering the trauma of what they've gone through because were not completely. Sometimes it's because they were coerced into it by their partner, or just because of the economy, and there, for example, you have women are dying. The hospitals are letting these women die. They're letting these women die. And let's talk about those 2 women in Georgia, how they died from the pro-abortion lies. And so we do need to step in and try to address that. So, for example, these two women, they live in Georgia, the Georgia restricted elective abortion. So they went to North Carolina, I believe, and they obtained abortion pills. They were told by, everyone, right, that the abortion pill is as safe as Tylenol, and that pro-life people are crazy for trying to fight against it. And they also said that if you experience complications, the hospital isn't going to treat you right away, because they falsely claim that the pro-life law demands that the doctor cannot treat her until she's exhibiting symptoms. And they also say, but even if you do go there to the hospital, even if you do get care for your complications, that state is going to prosecute you for an illegal abortion. And so those 2 women died as a result. In the first case, Amber Thurman, her boyfriend, she passed out, and her boyfriend actually was the one that took her to the hospital. And the other one, Candy Miller, she never made it to the hospital. And then when Amber Thurman did make it to the hospital, they could have treated her and given her a DNC right away. They knew what to do. For some reason, they didn't do it. No one knows the exact reason. They never stated so. But this is what's happening. And then you also have cases where, think about the children that are born alive. I read the stories. How traumatic is it? I heard of a doctor this is a doctor who was testifying against the Protect Babies Born Alive Act, the one that said in her article, "I didn't kill my baby." And this abortion doctor, 20 years ago, she was pregnant with twins, and one of her twins didn't make it. Her twin was born her first twin was born at 21 weeks or 22 weeks. And she was told that the baby was not likely to survive. She watched her baby die. This woman was so traumatized by that, she left the OBGYN job and she took a different. This is how traumatizing it is for women to see their babies born alive. It's also traumatizing for women who are taking these abortion pills. I've read these stories where they're bleeding a lot more and having a lot more pain than they thought they would. It's not like a normal period, and they feel like they're going to die. Read Britney Spears' story, which she said. And then some of these women who are told, "Oh, it's just tissue. You're 7, 8, 9 week. Oh, it's just tissue. It just looks like a ball of fluff. Look, here's a picture. It's just a ball of fluff." And these women undergo these abortions with abortion pills alone in their house. And some of these women, they birth their embryo and they see their embryo in their own hands. They see their baby. They see the fingers and toes and legs and arms. And they know at that point they were misled. And I've heard stories, they're going back to the abortion clinic or whoever, like, "Why didn't you tell me?" Or sometimes they don't say anything at all because they're so ashamed. This is hurting people. So I think what it comes down to, there are. I know some people think that the abortion issue has 2 positions: pro-life versus pro-choice. But I really think that there are four sets of ideology. There is pro-life, which is my belief that parents are responsible for the care of your child from the very beginning. That, to me, that's being pro-life, and that the state has a duty to intervene when people are hurting, unborn children or abusing the access to abortion. And then, of course, the second prong is pro-choice, where they believe we should center the woman's choice, right, in the matter, right? Let's center women. And then there's the men's choice activist, who sometimes it's difficult to pin out their position, but basically, like, their ideology is circling around. They want to center men's rights in their belief. And then we have libertarians who want to center their belief about They want fewer federal laws. They want to weaken the federal government. They may feel that, well, maybe this law is really more like a Trojan horse to insert more federal regulations. So, but you know what? I'm not going to be able to change your ideology. But the only thing I can do is talk about what's going on and tell you about the harms. And if you're willing to uh, uh, to think that this is something that what, the harms that are going on to women, to unborn children, and to our society is worth it, then consider supporting this one.
Yeah, the only thing we can do really with any of our positions is put our beliefs out there and help educate people so that they can take all of the information and hope that they take multiple perspectives into consideration and come up with their own ideas and own beliefs
Yeah.
and not just be sheep and blindly follow whoever they idolize and actually become a free thinker. And that's the whole point of why I do these podcasts and stuff, is to bring in different perspectives so that my audience can be educated on all different fronts so they can be free thinkers.
Yeah, and at some point in today's podcast, I would like to summarize the other two parts of my
Mhm.
proposal. Let me know when you want me to do that.
Yeah, so I did want to touch on your federal paid maternity leave.
Oh,
And
um,
stuff.
okay. So let me. I would please like to just quickly summarize my other
Yeah,
two
of
parts of my original proposal,
course.
because it is part of a package. So many people say that we need to have ways to promote adoption. And so I agree, we should have more ways to promote adoption, as well as to promote life for women who have circumstances. For example, their child has perhaps Down syndrome, or they have circumstances where they know they won't be able to care for the child or whatever. So my next set of proposal of ideas called Alleviate Fear and Apprehension of Choosing Life for Mothers of Disabled Babies. This lists many different, very simple ways that I hope that moderate Republicans could support to help with that aspect. Please take a look for more details. The last part says right to the education and coaching on management of pregnancy and parenting. So I suggest a high school that we should require high schools to offer an awareness class taught by a non-ideological, independently contracted source regarding fetal and child development, what abortion procedures are like, the risks/experiences of pregnancy and abortion, the resources and options available to low-income families, their people's rights, adoption, parenting skills and perspectives, primary attachment theory, the child's need for routine, care and attention, causes and examples and harms of toxic stress, absent fatherhood, counter-parenting, all forms of abuse, coercion, exploitation. Let's throw in a little bit about our biological sex differences and awareness about various disabilities like Down syndrome, ADHD, and autism. And then the other part is that I wish that we can mandate that Medicaid and health insurance offers parents of newborns, as well as recently separated parents, access to an in-home parental coach, again, independently contracted and selected by the mother, to provide direct, real-time information, advice, and assistance to the parents at their homes regarding all the above mentioned topics. Now, I would say this would be maybe, I don't know how many visits it would be, maybe one or two. It could be free, maybe it's a copay based on their income. They could also advise separated parents on developmentally appropriate parental custodial schedules. Now, these things are crucial. These are crucial parts of my proposal. I think it might be challenging to pursue on a federal basis, because I know there's limits on how they can influence education. But I'm throwing this out there as a way to, like, well, how can we effectuate, these kinds of goals to bring about this awareness? These things, we are indoctrinated ever since we were young girls that parenting is so hard, that it's just so hard. But like, if we were taught these things, that, this is, if we were taught these are some big what are babies actually like, what is it like to actually be a mom, and all these things, we wouldn't be so scared. And if we have an extra hand, like we would be more informed. We wouldn't be so scared about being a mom, and then learning about a lot of these concepts. These are the kinds of things that you need to know. Like, it shouldn't be where you don't learn about fetal development or about what abortion is like the day of an abortion. A pregnant woman and everyone in general needs to know about all these things ahead of time. So that's that. Now, yeah, let's go ahead into my other proposal. My other proposal is more on the liberal side, and I know that probably Trump and the GOP, most of them would probably not accept it because it's more on the liberal side. But I am throwing it out there because it is something that I truly believe in, and at a minimum, I hope that it helps steer discussions towards ideas that actually does help help build healthier families and supports the working class. Things that I think would actually give women freedom.
Yeah. So just give us a quick, like we've been doing, give us a quick overview of it. And like just kind of how does it fit into the larger framework of like how we can support women and working moms in like in our current world that we're living in.
Okay. So my other policy is called Federal Paid Maternal Leave, Unpaid Intermittent Leave, and College Flexibility. It's really just a set of ideas. The first idea is that we should offer 12-week federal paid maternal leave, which is very similar to what the Democrats have proposed. I know that many people on the Republican side tend not to support it. I know that Ivanka has urged Trump to support something like that. I do think that matters. It's not just to help with bonding time for working mothers. It's also for health reasons. When you look at the maternal mortality rate, number one, the majority of deaths caused by the maternal mortality rate is preventable. And many of those deaths occur after the baby is born, 1 week after, or weeks, or several months. So this is to help working mothers to heal before they go back to work. There's that. And then the next, I at some point I did throw out this wild idea that I wish that college students had access to that kind of leave. So I probably that idea won't be taken up, but I do want people to understand the most common reason, in my opinion, the most common reason why women abort is because it's out of fear that the baby is going to interrupt their career or education. Okay, you could be making a lot of money, but if you're working 40 or 50 hours a week, it's not just about the money. It's going to be very difficult to have a baby and a career, and a baby and go to college full time. In addition, if you do choose to be carry your pregnancy and become a parent, well, then when you're a full-time working mom or student, that causes a lot of toxic stress. Toxic stress is actually the state of California they declared toxic stress to be a health crisis and is a core driver of our biggest social problems as well as other health problems. In addition, the full-time separation between babies and young children with their primary attachment figure can cause long-term developmental harms. My other idea is that I feel that certain workers should be able to get 8 hours of unpaid time off. That would really resolve a lot of problems, resolve a lot of stress. And I think it's the best way to allow both parents to have more quality time with their children. That's what our country needs. We can say our country needs this or that, but you know what? It's not just about throwing money around to the issue, throwing money at it. And you know what? Kids need more quality time with both of their parents. My other idea is that when I was pregnant with my first child, I was attending college full time, and I was working full time. It was stressful doing all of that. I feel that I wish there was a law or something that if you are a student you're working at least 32 hours a week, or you're a student who is also a custodial parent, I wish that the college offered more flexibility where they said, okay, you have a right to take certain classes online, or, evening classes, or something like that. I also included ideas in which I think a custodial father should have access to some kind of paid family leave. However, I don't agree with the idea of giving both the mother and the father simultaneous paid leave at the same time for many reasons.
So I have a little bit with that is I would say maybe in the first 6 to 8 weeks because of the mom healing, having the simultaneous so that mom can focus on healing as well as bonding, and father can help with helping with mom and baby and household. So
Mhm.
I would see if you would be open to the concept of at least the first 6 to 8 weeks of
Or see if Trump can
simultaneous.
be open to that.
Yeah, someone, yeah,
And
because
see,
that it's
I,
tough.
you know, and you when you support policies like this, whether you want to vote on it or whatever, it doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with all the specifics. But the
Yeah.
main thing that it accomplishes is that it brings these debates to the table. You and
Mhm.
I can debate it, but like, wouldn't it be great if this debate was on the congressional floor? That
Yeah,
would
it would be
really
great.
mean that we got somewhere.
Yeah, it would be great to take these concept and again, it's the you want the core of these, like the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of some of like the fringe stuff isn't always necessary to agree on, but if you can find support for the core concept of some of these topics and we can and get these discussions being productive and mature and they're not attacking each other and not using them in negative lights, having these discussions would be great. I would love to see these, and that's I would so I always try to bring light to any concept that is a good core value topic that at its core have great potential. And I just a lot of the information you brought up today, either I didn't know that in depth or I'm very new to it because I come from emergency medicine.
Oh wow,
I'm new into the
you didn't
OB
warn me
world.
about that.
I'm an emergency room nurse, so I come from emergency medicine.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, and I have some knowledge and stuff like that, but again, we only get the basics. I love your idea with the adoption stuff, and I'm big on supporting adoptions and making them easier because I think that's a lot of the reason why some women don't take that route because it's so complicated and
Let
it's
me
so
say something that
tough.
people don't always think about is that women, pregnant women, we do not always have a right to choose adoption. We don't have that right. It usually, if you're not married, you're not living together, you can usually choose adoption. But if you are married, or if that, or you already have, that child has a sibling, you don't have that right to choose adoption. So if people want to talk about, like, there's waiting lines of people willing to adopt
Mhm.
um, uh, babies 2 or 3 years, and there's plenty of families that are willing to adopt Down syndrome babies and disabled babies.
Yeah.
There's plenty of choices, but I one of my stipulations is that we should give women the right to choose, pregnant women the right to choose adoption, and we could probably choose like limited circumstances if you want, because then some men may be like, hold on, but that's one way of moving forward. And in addition, um, adoption agreements, visitation agreements are not enforceable in every state.
Mhm.
Okay, so we need to strengthen rights for birth mothers, and we should also strengthen rights for surrogate mothers as well. Let's put those in together. That would be one way that Trump can make up for his pro IVF stance. You know,
Mhm.
we should have rights for birth mothers and surrogate mothers, because you can make a visitation agreement. You can get manipulated by these adoption agencies, because it turns
Mhm.
out you're the pregnant woman, you're not the customer, you're just carrying the product. Their customer is the family that's paying to adopt your child. They're paying thousands of dollars in legal fees. That the adopted family is the customer. And in some states, if that family does not allow you the visitation you agreed to, the state will not enforce it. You'll never see your baby again.
Yeah. You
But
can have it too that they're having a lot of like the adoptive parents that are initially agreeing to like an open or like semi-open adoption, where they're getting communication, a certain frequency set, monthly, quarterly, holidays, whatever. And then down the line, 5 years, 6 years, when the child starts getting older, they don't want to do that anymore because it's too much of a hassle, or they don't want the child because now the child's starting to develop their own thoughts and opinions, and they don't want to. Some of them will state subject the child to that stress and go and see, well, why did my biological mother not want me? Like, why was I given to this family? And those families don't want to touch on those topics. So they change the visitation or the contact on these mothers, and they can't do anything about it. So it's like it's definitely tough.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other things you want to talk about before we wrap up? Because it's been great. Like I love this conversation.
Let's see. I could start saying random things,
Oh, if you
start
have
chatting
nothing,
with random things. Let's see. Um, let's see.
yeah,
Maybe I can talk about another myth.
yeah. If you have anything else you want to put out there and mention to my audience, that would be great.
Okay.
If you don't, if you're
Sure. All
good,
right.
we can wrap up. It's up to you.
Okay. Yes, I would love to continue. Um, I always appreciate every opportunity. I don't protest outside of abortion clinics, and I don't riot, but I will, try to spread awareness and talk to as many people as I can, as long as you let me.
Of course.
um, okay, so let's see another myth. There. Okay. So what I will say is that my background, I used to support the Democrats. Um, I used to really want the Democrats to win. So, for example, I wanted Obama to win, Hillary to win, and I wanted Biden to win in 2020. But because I was pro-life, I just because of my conscience, I didn't vote for them, but I usually wanted them to win. I slowly got red pilled on various issues. So now I'm more involved in the independent community. I've been speaking out a lot within the Forward Party, as well as among RFK supporters and anyone who's adjacent to those movements. And I realized that this is where I started to realize that a lot of people are buying into the misinformation. And there's also a lot of people that try to shut down the discussion. They use a variety of tropes to shut things down. And my idea was, I started with the Forward Party, and I said, how about you guys create a fact sheet on this issue? And then that way we can vote, vote on policies based on being informed. And no one took me up on that idea. So I made a fact sheet. Now, to make this fact sheet, I had to start doing more research. And so this is when I went rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, finding out all these shocking things, and then I documented it. So the first thing I want to say right now is that if you are interested in learning more facts, I have created, for example, a one-pager called My Top 16 Discoveries About the Abortion Debate. And next to each statement, it has the page numbers of where you can find my sources and more details, which you can find on my super detailed Google Doc. So on my super detailed Google Doc, I have a little table of contents, but it contains all my facts, links, and informal videos on that topic. I've also made several very informal, cheap screen recording videos if anyone is interested on certain topics, so they can see that what I'm saying is true, or at least if you disagree, well, you know what, if you're not sure, look into it yourself. Here's your starting point. You look at all these things and you decide for yourself what you think is the truth and what you want to advocate for. And then I believe that if more people did that, we would be able to find more common ground, and we would be able to move our country to value a culture of life, no matter what our laws are. So we could add links to those things. I could do that in the end. I'll talk about one myth before I go into other things, if you let me. When Roe v. Wade passed, it was partially based on one of big abortion's biggest lies, hugest lie. They claimed that thousands of women were dying in pre-Roe back alley abortions. However, those numbers were debunked in 1969 by a statistician who was celebrated by Planned Parenthood. I have my sources. So that is a big, huge lie. And as you can see, the Democrats continue to use lies like that, and because that's their only way to save. That's really their main thing that's propping up abortion, is that you have to support abortion to save women's lives. And so that's the lie that we have to defeat, so at least we can have these more level-headed conversations. Let's see. There was a few things that I posted on my Twitter that I like for people to understand. Did you have any questions about that, or thoughts or comments?
No, this is your little hurrah here to wrap everything up. Any information you want to share, where to find anything? Like you said, you would bring up that the Google document you have and stuff would be great.
I posted some things where I was I feel like the pro-choice movement is actually anti-woman, and many people don't understand why I say that. So let's see, maybe I could find. Okay. I want to say something. I'm reading something that I put on my Twitter. Abortion ideology is anti-woman and degrading at its core, because the basis that pro-choice ideology thrives on, which is that women have some right to defy out or opt out of their parenting responsibilities, is actually the same tool that a subset of degenerate men use against mothers for our children. Abortion ideology enables men to think that they have a right to access a woman's body without responsibility, and that men have an equal right to opt out of their parenting responsibilities too. It teaches men that they can reproduce with and impregnate anyone they want, because that's the choice that he gets in exchange for this abortion choice that we get. Also, the separation of the majority of single women don't get any child support. And anytime a mother requests some form of support, our society reiterates the same tool that those non-supportive dads use to justify their lack of support. We're told, when we request some kind of support, we're told, well, it was your choice to be a mom. And it's all part of the same playbook. So while women gain freedom from various forms of birth control, like the pill, the coercive and exploitive culture that abortion ideology promotes has led to the destruction of families, much higher rates of single undersupported moms, more mental illness, more social problems, more young women being exploited by player culture. All of those things have significantly harmed women. And without full socioeconomic freedom, we still remain without true choice. Some people think that offering more support to moms isn't necessary because we had a choice to abort. It's as if to say that we chose to be undersupported mothers. It's a false illusion of choice. Abortion ideology and coercion culture signs women up into a deal whereby we've exchanged an expectation of support for the option to terminate. Well, I didn't voluntarily sign up for such a deal. And like most women, I didn't want abortion. I wanted support.
Yeah. So it's this, like I said, this conversation's been incredible. You've really laid out a great roadmap on how we can address abortion in a way that's compassionate and data driven and just realistic. And I want to put out there to all my listeners, I really encourage everyone to go check out RFK Jr.'s policy portal to check out Ashley's full proposal. Share it, comment on it, and most importantly, keep having these discussions. It's something we need to support, and having these great conversations continuing in our futures. We can't afford to marginalize pro-life women voices, and it's especially when they're coming from a place of real concern and practical solutions. We need to stay informed. We need to consider moderate solutions and remember that this issue isn't very simple at all. It's a pretty complex, in-depth issue, and it's multifaceted. And it's somewhat, and the only way forward is for us to keep talking about it and having these discussions and listening with an open mind and an open heart, and just listening to people and giving them respect and dignity and giving their perspectives on things as much as we would like ours respected as well. I want to thank you, Ashley, so much for coming on and bringing your voice and your proposals to the table today here. And as always, I want to shout out to my sponsors, libertarianmutualaid.org, Libertarian Medical Freedom Caucus, and the Libertarian Party Radical Caucus for supporting the show and our message of freedom. Today, we are wrapping up with a campaign ad from John Thomas, the real Pennsylvanian running for U.S. Senate. Unlike Dave McCormick, John's from Pennsylvania, not Connecticut. He's ready to dismantle the military-industrial complex, which neither Bob Casey nor McCormick would ever touch. He refuses to sell out America to China like McCormick seems so eager to do. And then right after, we will have Tatiana Morose's powerful song, Silk Road. And to President Biden, it's time to do the right thing and pardon Ross Ulbricht. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Do you mind if
They'll
I make
tell you that.
Do you mind if I make kind of my final plea?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so as we know, the RFK movement set up the website is called Policies for the People. Many people signed up for this website. They may have voted for some policies, but I noticed that the majority of people have not returned. So I encourage everyone to please go on that website and review all these policies and continue voting and commenting. In that policy proposal, I included a brief letter to Trump and to RFK and the whole Maha team. So I'm urging everyone to go on that website and please try to, that's my message to them. And I feel like really alone, and it would really help me if more people would pass on that message. And if you run into RFK Jr. or Mr. Trump or anyone on their team, tell them I wrote a letter for them and I want them to read it.
Okay. So we'll get that. We have that out there for our audience, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
They'll tell you the choice for senator is between an establishment Democrat who wants to start World War III in Eastern Europe and an establishment Republican who wants to start World War III in the Middle East. In the tide of war fever, it takes courage to say neither. It takes courage to choose peace and prosperity over war and inflation. It takes courage to not throw away your vote for more of the same. Be courageous. Vote for me. I'm
was a man who did the unspoken. He looked for freedom from the violence. No one is perfect when there's new ground broken. A mess is made and someone gets blamed. He had a dream of harmony as you wish to live out your own. We cannot stand for this, cannot have you justice and we wanna be free and hope the truth will prevail. He had a dream of harmony as you wish to live out your own. We cannot stand for this, cannot have you fall along the Silk Road. We still have hope, we cannot quit. Don't be afraid. We have a voice and this is it. Let the light show the way. We had a dream of harmony as you wish to live out your own. We cannot stand for this,